Welcome to the world of Mark's Money Mind, coming to you this week from CampFI Mid-Atlantic in Spring Grove, Virginia, just down the James River from Richmond. I'm your host, Mark Troutman, CFP. This educational personal finance show combines money lessons, timely topics, personal stories, and community wisdom to help listeners and viewers master their finances to enjoy a stress-free life of financial freedom. Hello, everybody. We are here at CampFI Mid-Atlantic. Let's hear it. We are in front of a live audience, and this year there were over 100 participants, largest CampFI I've ever attended. I think they're usually around 50 or 60, so this was great. The other cool thing was that there were a lot of new participants this year, and that was just fabulous. And hopefully you all had a good time. We're recording here on Sunday, which is the last hurrah evening of the weekend. I'm here today with my co-host, Megan Combs of the Everyday FI podcast. Let's hear it up for Megan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have Samantha and Chris joining us on the dais, I guess we would say. So let's hear it for them. And for all you first-timers here, the first time I met Chris and Samantha was here last year. And we had some great conversations, and I was very excited to hear about what they were going to do over the course of the next year. And here we are, probably almost 365 days later. I didn't look at the exact date of last year's, but it was a year ago. And one thing I have noticed in the FI community, I've been in this community for about a decade. And initially it was all about, let's get there as fast as possible, some deprivation involved, and we're going to get to this FI number and life is going to be great. And over the past, especially past few years, I've noticed that more and more people are willing to take the slower path. And there's a book called Taking Stock by Jordan Grummett who talks about the three brothers, and one tries to get there as fast as possible, one takes a slower route, and the last one takes a very lackadaisical route because he just enjoys life and is not in a hurry to get anywhere. And I think a lot of people in the early FI community were more like the older brother, which wanted to get there as quick as possible. But I think there's a lot of people that are really enjoying that kind of middle path these days. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that and talk about what you guys have been doing over the past year. Chris reminded me that we had an interesting conversation last year, which unfortunately I didn't exactly recall. And he said it was a very interesting conversation that allowed him to do something that he was thinking about doing, but had yet to make that decision. So apparently I inspired someone to do something, and I would really like to hear about that. So Chris, why don't you tell us what you did over the last year?
Yeah, so when I came to CampFI last year, I was on the fence about taking a sabbatical to New Zealand. It was probably literally a 5-minute conversation with Mark, which he forgot. That was life-changing for me.
And I apologize for that.
Yeah. He's like, you're going to have to remind me about what that was. So yeah, he just asked, it felt like 5 simple questions or something. But I ended up quitting my job and taking a sabbatical to New Zealand for 7 months. I was pretty much living in a van. I had working odd jobs. I did fruit picking. I worked on a farm. I worked at the traveling carnival. To go from that, before that, I was working at software engineering. So very corporate, to then fruit picking was a crazy, crazy, crazy change of life. And yeah, I just got back 2 months ago. And since then, I'm starting to bite the bullet of going back to corporate life again, but with renewed energy. And I've learned a lot of things that I'll take into this new corporate life at least.
And tell us a little bit about this visa. We were chatting a little bit prior about this specific type of visa. Can you tell us what that entailed? And it also seemed to move your timeline into a specific time period as a result of the requirements around that.
Yeah, so this is called a working holiday visa. Both Australia and New Zealand have them. It's possible other countries do as well, but essentially for the New Zealand one, you have to be under 30 years old or 30. I'm not exactly sure. If you're going to look into this visa, please double check that. Essentially, from the day it took, honestly, I applied for it online. It was pretty easy to get. You have to spend some money I think it was like maybe 300 or 400 US dollars. So it wasn't exactly cheap. It got approved for me the next day. And then from that day, I had a year to enter New Zealand. And once I entered New Zealand, I had a year to stay, pretty much. So as soon as I got that visa approved, I had 1 year to enter the country. So it's like a ticking time bomb. If I don't go, it's just gone once you get it. So if you get it and don't ever go, it's just gone. You can't get it again.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
So was it always the plan to maybe work the entire year, or were you thinking of doing a shorter time period and it ended up being longer, or how did that all transpire?
Yeah, so you can live and work in New Zealand up to a year on this visa. I've been away from home for a year before, and I got homesick at the end. So I was like, for sure, I want to do 10 months. And then what ended up happening is before I left for New Zealand, I met a girl, as happens. And then she was like, I've known you for less time than you're going to be away for. so I ended up compressing it just because of her, pretty much.
Awesome. And what was your FI journey before that? Was this something you had planned all along and you were like, oh, once I get to a certain number, I'm going to do this? Or tell us a little bit about your FI journey prior, what type of FI maybe you're following, and how did the idea come about to basically be able to afford to do this?
Yeah, so I started working in like 2015, and at that point, I knew nothing about anything FI or even investing related. I honestly was just saving money into a checking account for probably like 2 years at that point. And then I think me and my mom used the same accountant, and I heard from my mom that my accountant was not making fun of me, but he was giving me crap for not investing pretty much. What is Chris doing? So at that point, I just decided to max out my 401k, even though I had no idea about anything of that. So I just did target date index fund. And then honestly, it wasn't until 2021-ish where I actually discovered the FI community and decided to get intentional about how to actually invest money, pretty much.
And from our previous conversation, it sounds like your father was instrumental, and your father actually followed somebody that this community is probably pretty aware of. And I was interested to hear any ideas around how maybe he found that, because it's an interesting connection.
Yeah, so when I was 18 years old, my dad sent me Mr. Money Mustache, but because I was 18, I just ignored it. Big time regret, big time regret. He found it later in life. I don't exactly know when. He must have been in his 50s at that point when he discovered it. He's a big nerd, kind of just like all of us, so he got really excited about it. But I'm not exactly sure how he stumbled upon it initially. And
Megan, do you want to ask Chris some questions? Let's hear them.
Yeah, so I would like to know how you came to find FI in 2021. Was it from the Mr. Money Mustache? Did you finally go and read what your dad sent you, or did you find it another way?
No, I'm really stubborn. No. So it's sort of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. Pretty much after COVID, I was working remotely, and I started to do a road trip throughout the U.S. I found myself in Jackson, Wyoming, and I fell in love with the place. I was there for like 4 months, and I was actively trying to buy real estate there. Jackson's crazy expensive, and I found a real estate auction that I was like, oh, I'm going to this. And so I ended up like preparing for the auction. I did a title search, did all that stuff, and I ended up going to the auction. I ended up losing it to some guy who outbids me. But we end up chatting afterwards, and he sort of shows me into Bigger Pockets podcasts, which I'd never even heard about at that point. I had no idea about any of this. From there, I discovered the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. And that was honestly my way into FI, actually. I know a lot of people get into it through CoastFI. I didn't hear about CoastFI until this time last year, actually, at CampFI.
And we were blessed with having Brad from CoastFI here on Saturdays. So did you get to meet him and talk to him at all?
Yeah, I fangirled a little bit. Yeah, big time. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, he lives in the Richmond area, and so he stopped by for the day, so that was kind of fun. And we're going to talk a little bit about Bali later, and he is actually coming to Bali this year, and I'll be there again this year, so that's kind of cool. Now, when you went over there, you were a van lifer, I understand.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how that came about and how that was, living in a van. And also, it sounds like New Zealand is pretty well set up for doing that. So I was very curious to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, van life is something I was always interested in. Before I made the decision of going to New Zealand, I'd always wanted to do van life, but I didn't think New Zealand was the place for it until I started looking into it. And it turns out New Zealand is the perfect place to do it. So they have this whole thing called freedom camping, which is essentially you have to get a van certified in order to freedom camp. So you can't just buy a van off the street, throw a bed in it, and start doing it. But if you meet certain requirements, like you have to have a portable toilet, you have to have certain other things that I'm forgetting right now. But essentially, there's free camping spots throughout the whole country. And there's an app. It's super simple. It's called CamperMate. It'll show you where you can camp for free. It'll show you where showers are. It'll show you where toilets are. It'll show you where Wi-Fi is. And honestly, the process of buying... So what I ended up doing was buying and selling my car in New Zealand, since I was going to be in there for 7 months, pretty much. The process of buying a car in a different country in New Zealand at least, was so easy. Like it took about 15 minutes in total. So I walked into the equivalent of their DMV, I waited in line for 10 minutes, and then I filled out a form, and that was it. It was dumb easy. Insurance, weirdly enough, is optional there, but you can buy insurance at the DMV, at their equivalent of the DMV. So it's the same exact shop that you're already at. So you just go buy insurance, and it's much cheaper than U.S. car insurance, surprisingly.
And so the big question is, was it a 3-gallon bucket or a 5-gallon bucket?
No, neither.
So it actually had a true working toilet.
It was a portable toilet, which was kind of like, it wasn't just a bucket. It was a little fancier.
Bucket with a lid.
Yeah,
We
it had a
have
lid.
Annie come up and talk about that at some point. Having done this, would you recommend this to others? And if so, how should people go about thinking about doing this and preparing for it financially, logistically, things like that?
Yeah, I would say I'm in a very specific situation. So for me, it was this is the conversation we had actually, which was like, do you have kids? No. Do you have a wife? No. And it's like, do you want those in the next future pretty much? And it's like, yeah, at some point. And it's like, well, is it going to be harder then or is it going to be harder now? And it's like, oh, now. It's going to be easier now. So that was the initial mindset change that I had to get over in order to do this. And then for me, I think living and working in a different country is probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. It's definitely changed. It's so interesting to see where if coming from corporate America, where people are so strung up tight about their positions and climbing the corporate ladder, and then to go work in a different country where they work to live kind of thing, or live to work. I always flip those two. Which one is it? The opposite.
I don't know which one.
America is live to work. Europe is work to live.
Work to live, yeah. So they're very much a work to live culture where it's every 4 hours you have a tea break. And you're like, we're working at a carnival. Why do we have a tea break? This makes no sense. But I'll take a tea break, okay. So yeah, I think for if you have the opportunity to go live and work in a different country and you can swing it wherever you're in life, I would highly recommend it, definitely.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. First is probably a little easier. How much did you have to save before going on this trip? And then second question is, are you going to make these a regular part of your journey for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I was in an interesting spot where I was saving enough for a down payment for a house. So I actually had significant amount of savings. So I already had the saving part done. So that was an easy part. Am I going to make this regular part of life? I don't see how I'm not doing this every 5 years. So I have to figure out how that looks on a resume. But yeah, I see myself definitely doing this again in the future.
What were your biggest lessons while you were over there that you learned?
Yeah, I feel like I forgot how to have fun, if I'm being honest. I feel like I just lost all my hobbies. And the first month, honestly, was a little bit difficult to adjust hey, you can do things with people. You can just go out right now. You don't have a job. You can just go and, go meet someone. I think that was a weird thing to get over of what do you actually fill your time with once you stop. And then once I eventually started meeting friends over there, it was so easy to fill it up where it's even after coming back now, I'm I have all these hobbies and stuff that I didn't have when I left. And I'm I don't know where a full-time job fits in anymore. I think the other thing I realized is how important relationships are. It definitely wasn't always fun and this crazy adventure. There was definitely low points where it's hey, you get pretty lonely if you're out living in a van by yourself and don't know anyone. So relationships are super important and energizing to your life.
I do want to follow up on that a little bit. So it sounds like you did this as a solo traveler. Were there any challenges doing that? And how did you meet people in a country? And I presume you didn't know anyone when you went there, right? So
Yeah, I didn't know anyone.
and how did that go? How were you able to break the ice or find friends or just decide I'm going to do this by myself and I don't really care if I find any friends?
Yeah, well, for one, there's more room in the van when you travel solo, which is a huge plus.
Good point.
Huge plus. But no, so I was staying in hostels for the most part until I got the van. So in a hostel, it was already, there's a lot of people who are around the same age as me doing the same exact visa and everything like that. So you already have a kind of community of people you can talk with. And then it's also like, okay, you meet people from Argentina, Germany, Italy, all over Europe, and you have a million differences to talk about too. So it's like, talk about the things in common and the differences. After I bought the van for about 3 weeks, after 3 weeks of traveling in the van, after I bought it, it did get lonely. And that's when I was like, maybe I'll get a job. And it's honestly for socialization purposes. So that was when I joined the carnival. And from there was like 18 other backpackers who were also working at the carnival. And that was like an instant network of friends that I ended up seeing throughout the whole rest of my trip. So. And
when you say working for a carnival, what did you do working for a carnival?
It's like he ran away and joined the circus.
I worked the game stand. So there's this one creepy clown game that like... So I was like the person who would be like, step right up, folks, try your luck at the laughing clowns, and try to like shoo people in.
That's funny. So I want to shift to, do you have any additional questions? Okay. I wanted to shift to Samantha here because we met also at this event the first time, and I presume the two of you also met the first time at this event and kind of were instigators to each other to do this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did and how that interaction maybe helped each of you to pursue this?
Yeah, so Chris and I were joking, this is a busy weekend. There's lots of people to meet. We met on the last morning as folks were wrapping up, packing up, saying goodbye, and realized that we were both looking to do some long-term travel in the coming year. So we exchanged phone numbers, maybe we can help each other out. And I knew coming out of this weekend that I needed support, community, a kick in the butt to really make it happen. So I reached out to Chris pretty quickly and said, let's meet regularly. Let's start talking about what does it take to do this. So we kept in touch, I think every 2 or 3 weeks, we would have like an hour-long FaceTime call. And Chris, thankfully, was going first. So I got to benefit from a lot of his research. And at the same time, try to push him, like, have you given your leave yet? Or have you given notice? Have you started that conversation? So it was helpful to know that we were going to talk in another 2 weeks and be able to say, what have you done? What have you done and what have you learned since we last connected?
And I do want to ask a little bit. I mean, you presented here, so this audience has heard a lot about your story. And where did you go exactly?
Sure. So I went to the 5 Freedom Retreat in Bali. I started my trip there, and I did a 3-month sabbatical around Southeast Asia. So I spent a month in Bali, a total of 6 weeks in northern and southern Thailand, all over, and then did a 2-week trip around central and northern Vietnam.
Now, our friend Amy, who puts on that retreat, told me one time that someone reached out and said they were a little apprehensive about coming to Bali on their own, and it told me who it was, and it was you.
It was me.
And when I got there and saw you and talked to you, I'm like, are you sure that was Samantha that was asking those questions? Because that's shocking. And especially now, knowing all of the things you've done on your own, and obviously you've changed quite a bit from being that apprehensive individual that was unsure about just getting on a plane to go to Bali. And so it sounds like you have been able to open your mind to do a lot more things. And it sounds like there might even be some more on the horizon as well, correct?
Yeah, so I'd traveled before, but always to an English or Spanish-speaking country. That felt really comfortable for me. I could go somewhere, practice my Spanish. And, I was new to this community in person and was invited to an event on the other side of the world with a 12-hour time difference. And the thought, traveling on a plane by yourself for that much time is kind of intimidating. And I knew I didn't want to just go for a week or two. So yeah, I did reach out to Amy and sort of shared my hesitations with her, my nerves, things like that. And she was just the kindest, warmest person ever. She totally put me at ease and pushed me to do what I wanted to do anyways.
And if any of you go to additional CampFIs, you will probably see Amy. I know she's going to CampFI Midwest this year for sure. So yeah, come on back and you'll get to meet Amy. She's a wonderful, wonderful person and puts on an awesome event in Bali. It sells out extremely fast this year. Sold out in, I think, 2 hours. So if you want to get on that list, go to 5freedomretreats.com, sign up for the email, and get notified.
Yeah, I am on the wait list for 2025. So Samantha, you were hesitant to go to Bali by yourself. Do you have any advice for solo travelers and specifically solo female travelers to ease some of those nerves that they might also have for going on any length of trip by themselves?
Yeah, so I'm 35, and in the last 2 years, I discovered Reddit. And it was a really life-altering discovery as well. And I think what's great about communities, online communities like Reddit and like some of the Facebook groups with people who are in the FI community and travel, is they share their experiences. And you can sort of just see over and over again the trips people went on, what they did, what they learned. So I think continuing to read about all the people that did this type of travel alone helped to normalize it for me. And then also as a female solo traveler, I did do some research, read some of the travel blogs about what are the common scams in certain countries, is it safe for women in that area, and just generally got a sense of what is the culture towards solo and solo female travelers. And from what I learned, Southeast Asia is a very first-time friendly backpacker region to visit. So I was pretty confident I wasn't blazing any new trails and I would be able to sort of learn on the way.
And I think you touched on this a little bit in your talk, but I'm very curious about the ability to go into an employer and ask for a significant amount of time off. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about your process and approach to doing that and potentially coming back. And I presume that's what you did, came back to the same employer, but I'm curious about that. And then Chris, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We talk about like debt snowballs and savings snowballs. Mine was like a sabbatical snowball. So I knew I needed to go for a week to the retreat. I knew I wanted to go a little bit early so I wouldn't be jet lagged. And then I thought, I'll ask for a month off. That sounds about right. But because I don't have a month, like who here has a month of PTO just sitting around? So then in talking with this community, I sort of realized my boss is going to be really annoyed if I ask for a month off. So I might as well ask for 3 months off because they're going to be the same annoyed. It's the same paperwork, I'm leaving. So at the same time, I forgot to mention this yesterday, there was a hiring freeze at the time. And I knew that was going to help me out. They were hiring, but they weren't hiring, but they could still backfill if I left. So I that was a little uncertain, but I knew that with HR policies the way they are, they would have to write the job posting, get HR to approve it, interview, and then hire. And the new person wouldn't have 2 years of experience. I had only been at that company for 2 years. So I came in with that sort of confidence that it wasn't like a silly, stupid ask. It was still a bold ask. But and it was uncomfortable. It was stressful. I think we had a lot of conversations about poor Chris. But I just kept stating what I needed, and what I really needed was 3 months off completely. And so I think in just continuing to show up and ask for what I needed, it was able to happen.
And it sounded like from your presentation yesterday, you read what you could and couldn't do, and it sounded like it was a little bit vague, and you had to kind of bring that to their attention. But would you have been willing to just leave if they said no?
Yes. Yeah, I was totally willing to leave.
And Chris, you went for a much longer time. Did you try to get a sabbatical time frame? And if so, how did that go?
Yeah, so kind of like similar to what Sam said of like I did break out my HR policy and tried to scour it for anything. And the only thing that came up was like 3-month unpaid leave for like, I forget the exact terminology, but it was like extreme duress or something. And I was like, this is definitely not that.
Difficult circumstances was mine.
Difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do remember talking with Sam a lot about this. I think we talked, because it was like, do we give a month's notice? Do I give 2 weeks notice? How do we game plan this? If I give a month's notice, are they just going to fire me on the spot if I X? Because I was asking for a year off. Even though I know I wasn't going for a year, I still wanted to have that option just in case. So it was much like a much bigger ask. Corporate software engineering, you're very replaceable. So I decided not to do 1 month. I just gave my 2 weeks notice. And at that 2 weeks notice, I was like, look, if there's anything I can come back to this company, I think I'd like that. And my boss was like, do you just want me to ask HR if there's like a year sabbatical thing? And I was like, you would ask that? Like, like people are going to look at you like you have 8 heads. Like no one's going to. And he was like, dude, if you want, I will ask that. If you want me to ask that. And I was like, sure. And he did get back to me the next day and was like, that's not a thing. And I was like, yeah, makes sense. So yeah, that was it. He said like, that was it. So I ended up giving notice, 2 weeks notice. And then I was on a flight, I think 3 weeks after that or something. I did leave on very good terms, like very good terms. So I had, after I actually left, like a bunch of directors and the CTO even reached out and was like, when you're back, please reach out. If we're your first option, we'd love that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if you're a valuable employee and you leave on good terms, I think that's definitely the way to go, because you never know. Maybe they will want to hire you back. But it sounds like you are you currently working? You just got back, right?
I got back 2 months ago, and I've been kind of having just some fun.
Yeah.
I think after this, I'm going to Toronto next week. After that is when I'm actually going to start applying for jobs.
I guess obviously it was beneficial to have a financial backstop to be able to have that flexibility, obviously for the full year off, and then for the ability to have a job or look for a job and, as you see fit and not feel like you got to rush into something, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of weird because on the trip, I obviously spent money, but because the way the market's been going, I've actually have more than when I came back. I will say software engineering, tech market has taken a downturn since I have left. So if you're going on a sabbatical, just understand if you come back 7 months, 6 months, a year later, it could be a completely different market too. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Good luck. I'm also in tech. So
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of runway, what would be the advice that you give people for like how much to save to do this? Because I think sometimes people can get a little nervous about, well, if I quit my job and I do this, what if I don't get a job right away? So how much runway do you have? Is it like the typical emergency fund of 3 to 6 months, or is it more than that? And what would you recommend? Both of you. This is a question for both of you.
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I had $28,000 in cash saved and ready for this trip. I had no idea what it would cost. And then I had another $26,000 in a brokerage account that I knew I could tap into if I needed. I also knew that if I really just couldn't get a job when I got back, I would just rent out my house and go live with mom until I got a job. So Jillian Johns-Red talks about this a lot in her Retire Often work, but I gamed out multiple financial scenarios based on 3 or 4 levers, like whether I got a job again, how much I spent, if I was able to rent the house or not, things like that. So I was pretty sure that like with all the scenarios I made, it would be just fine.
Yeah, and for me, since I was saving up for a house, it was actually like way more than just an emergency fund at that point. Yeah, I think it's a significant amount, definitely. But I think it goes back to the multiple scenario things. If you leave you need to plan that time when you come back and when you don't have a job, right? And like, are you willing to go back to the same company that maybe you don't like, maybe you were burnt out and left for a reason? I think it all just depends on everyone's different scenario. Yeah.
And would you say you have changed in any way as a result of this sabbatical? If so, how?
Yes. For a long time there, I was living in a city, and I love nature, and it made no sense why I was living in a city. So it just made me realize the things that are important around me. And like I said it before, like relationships, I feel like I never invested in them, and it was always people reaching out to me. And I feel like I love Keith's idea, wherever he is, of keeping it like just reminders of like, have you reached out to these people? Because it makes me energized. It all made me realize of what I'm willing to put up with at a job. I feel like I was always like trying to go above and beyond. And after having tea time at the carnival, I'm like, maybe chill. Yeah.
Just to add on, so Chris mentioned earlier the idea of having fun, like forgetting how to have fun living here in this life. And that totally resonates with me. I forgot how to have fun. I forgot that fun was like a worthy way to spend my time. So for sure, now that I'm back, I try to remember to have fun.
And would you guys say you associate yourself best with a CoastFI or SlowFI lifestyle? Is that how you would, because obviously if you take some time off, you're not going to be able to get there as quick as maybe you just put your head down and grind it out. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if you might be able to talk a little bit to that. I think of my daughter's generation, and the ones that I talk to in her kind of friend circle are very much, I think, would associate well with the CoastFI kind of approach. And I'm seeing that more and more in this community. So I was wondering if you could speak to that and if you think that's kind of how you view your path to FI at this point.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the exact terminology here. One of the things that I was definitely on the fence of going before we had that talk was like, I think if I stayed at the same job for 5 years, I would have been completely FI, probably more than FI. So it's like, well, do I just grind it out for 5 years and completely miss this opportunity or not? And then it was that talk that we had where it's just like, you're going to have other things in 5 years to worry about. So
it's my fault. Okay.
Yeah. Is that SlowFI, CoastFI? I don't really.
CoastFI is when you've reached the stage that the money you have in your retirement accounts left without anything else added to them will naturally grow to what you need at traditional retirement age, 65. SlowFI, at least definition I've seen, is designing a life that you don't need to retire from. So I would say that I had reached CoastFI before I went on the sabbatical, and I do love the idea of designing a SlowFI lifestyle.
And I think you can combine all the different lifestyles because I am personally doing both Coast, Slow, and Barista.
And Barista.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to define Barista for people that don't know what that is?
Yeah, I mean, Barista-Fi is pretty much the same as CoastFI. It's where you get to a point where your investments will reach regular retirement at 65, but then you have such low expenses, you can just go work at a coffee shop or REI or Trader Joe's and cover your daily expenses with that salary, but you don't have to save anymore. And so it's like part-time work, and then you can spend the other time doing whatever you want. So that's my aim. Personally.
And frequently those institutions that you mentioned will even offer health insurance, right?
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And even some other benefits.
And can I just add, so I had reached CoastFI and I was like, cool, I'm going to keep plugging away until I reach the real one. And then I had a really helpful conversation with David Robinson, one of my favorite people here, who shared, I think it's Jillian Johns Rudd's concept of future you money and current you money. So he looked at me and said, future, Samantha, is all taken care of. Now you just need enough money for you today. And if you're in Bali, if you're in Southeast Asia, you need less money. And so for me, like thinking about it as a just black and white duality was a lot easier than thinking about the FI net worth thermometer going up and up and up. So.
And I'd like to wrap it up here with you guys, or with Chris at least. We're going to bring up another member of the audience in a moment here. But do you have anything to add? Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about? Or
No, I think that's pretty good. I think the final thing I'll say is just like me and Sam, we met at CampFI last year. So like if you know someone who's in the same situation that you're in, get their contact information and just send them a text next week to be like, hey, how's it going? So just reach out to those people.
Yeah, seriously, like that was instrumental. I was like, I don't know this guy at all, but we meet every 2 weeks on the phone and we are really intensely serious about this. And I think it was really mutually beneficial for both of us.
And it sounds like having an accountability partner in this endeavor was valuable, obviously, because you both did it.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
I do have one question for Chris before he leaves. Are you and that girl still together?
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And we're going to bring up Keith now. So come on up. So Keith was also one of our speakers this weekend. So we have a panel of speakers up here right now. Keith has an interesting story. I'm going to let him fill you in on that. But I view Keith's current path as kind of the evolution of what Chris and Samantha have done post-FI. So Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story real quick, and I want to dive into your current life. And Keith and I, our paths cross all the time, and it's awesome to see the amazing Keith here. And he is like the happiest guy on earth, and that's actually what his talk was pretty much about. And every time I see him, I just have a huge smile. So it's great to have you up here. And yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you are up to these days?
Thanks. Yeah, so I actually met Mark at the first CampFI that I ever went to about 2.5 years ago, and completely changed my life. He was very outgoing with everything. And then at this CampFI Mid-Atlantic 2 years ago, Amy Minkley and I were sitting around the bonfire, and I was trying to figure out what am I going to do next in life. And she was saying, I really enjoy these, but we don't have these over in Southeast Asia. I'm thinking about doing this event over in Bali. Do you think anybody would come? I was like, I'll come. And before that, Southeast Asia wasn't even on my list. I had no plans to go to Southeast Asia, but I was like, oh, well, my friend is having an event over there. I'll go over, and I like events, I like my friend, and I like travel. And so that launched me into the travel, because I was like, well, I'm not going to go over there just for 5 days, similar to what Samantha was saying. I want to get over there a little bit before and get over the jet lag and then stay a little bit after. And I ended up over there for 4 months. And the impetus of going over there, I was like, I'm going to be traveling over to Southeast Asia. I have to go see all my friends in America first. So I spent the whole summer driving around the United States, visiting friends. And then I was planning on being there for 6 months. And I came home at 4 months because our friend Amberly was doing a cruise, and there were so many people signed up. I was like, well, I can't miss that. So I came back and did that cruise. And then I sort of accidentally ended up just being a permanent nomad. I own a house. I technically live somewhere, but I've spent maybe a week there in the past year or year and a half, and I've just been moving from location to location, visiting friends, and going to events like this.
What was the kind of trigger that made you want to become nomadic, and how did you, maybe to fill people in on your kind of FI journey, what enabled you to be able to finance basically a nomadic lifestyle like that?
I reached FI back some years ago, and I retired in 2018. And retired, I put retired in air quotes because I own a bunch of rental real estate, and so I wasn't really retiring from a job or anything. There was never going to be any gold watch or cake and party, but So I considered retirement when I handed over management to a company, and they took care of the day-to-day stuff, and then I was free to do whatever I wanted. So I have been dreaming about travel for my entire life. I've always wanted to travel, and I thought, all right, well, now that I've reached FI, now that I don't have any daily responsibilities, I'm going to go travel the world as much as I can.
How is it managing properties? And I know you have a property management company, but if you're in different time zones and so forth, how does that work for you? Is that working out okay? Is it really that hands off? Is it truly that passive? Which I always hear real estate isn't as passive as it's meant to be. Or
I'll tell you what, when you do it right, it is so easy that it's criminal. I love living in the future. If my management company needs to show me something, they'll send me pictures or video, or I can just do a video chat with them and see what they're talking about. For the most part, it's just emails and pictures of showing me, okay, this is what we want to do. They'll say, okay, well, if this water heater broke, do you want us to replace it with this one or this one? And I'll pick one, and then I'll get back to living my fun life, and they'll go and do all the hard work of actually replacing that water heater. And then I get reports once a month. I get checks once a month or more often, depending on having to do with when the tenants move in and out. And yeah, my whole workload is looking at reports every now and then, making sure that the checks went into the account, and talking to my managers maybe once or twice a month when they've got a question for me.
are all the properties in one location? So is it one property management company, or are we talking about a portfolio that's spread across the country?
So I actually have, most of my properties are in a small town in Illinois. I have 38 long-term rentals there. I've got one short-term rental there, and then a short-term rental down in Florida. And so I've got 3 different property managers. The property managers for the long-term properties, and then a separate manager for the one short-term, and a separate manager for the one short-term in Florida.
What inspired you to pursue the financial independence lifestyle, and why did you choose real estate as your strategy for reaching that?
When I was a kid, my dad always used to say that he wished he would have bought property when he was young so he could retire on it when he was old. And he also told me that he wished he would have been a truck driver so he could go see the country. So on my 21st birthday, I got my CDL and went and saw the country. And then I got out of the truck and bought my first property. And if I had known that he was going to have such good ideas, I would have paid a lot more attention when I was a kid.
So the reason I wanted to keep Samantha up here on the dais is because the 3 of us went to Bali. And first, I want you to share the interesting story that you told me about that you had with your, I guess it was either Grab or Gojek driver. And it became our motto for the Financial Freedom Motorcycle Club. If you can see my shirt here, we actually have a logo and everything. And this was formed in Bali last year. And a number of our riders are here with us. John is one, Annie's one, David is here. So we have the whole clan here. And just so curious to hear the actual story because I've repeated it numerous times. And I just want to make sure I have it right.
Sure. So when you get to Bali, to Ubud specifically, and it is terrifying to cross the street. You have to be welcomed from a group of people you know and taught how to cross the street. So you were just like a child again, learning how to navigate crossing the road. We were trying to figure out what are the traffic laws here. There is one stoplight in Ubud that they're testing out. And it didn't look like the test was going very well, right? We all know what to do at a stoplight, but they weren't actually using it. They were just sort of, everyone was doing their own thing, but no one ever really crashed at all. It seemed to be some sort of organized chaos. So I said to him, we have a lot of traffic laws that we all abide, and that's how we're able to sort of all get around, without killing each other. So what is the law here? What is your guidance? And he said, "Oh, we drive by feeling."
Yeah, so we learned on our little motorbike club that all we needed to do was drive by feeling, and it all works out. And you know what's weird? It does work. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but that's
no, definitely. If you come up on a, kind of merging onto a highway or getting off of a highway, that moment where you've got your window, other cars are expecting you to merge, and you don't do it. Or if you're teaching a newer driver how to navigate some of these more uncertain moments, you know when they've done it wrong. And so, I found that when I came up to an intersection, you saw the right moment, you just have to go. If you wait another moment, the person behind, it creates more chaos. All the other drivers are expecting you to go. You should have gone.
And it does help that everyone is very nice over there. It probably wouldn't work well over here driving with feeling. We would have a lot of feeling accidents.
The other advice I got because I learned how to ride a scooter, I took a informal lesson. We would be driving down the road, and I would look in my mirrors, and I was always, we were taught to drive. I was taught to drive defensively. So in my car, I'm in charge of how everyone around me is driving. You need to be paying attention to who's behind you and on the sides of you. The way they drive there it's what's in front of you. So he was like, don't worry about anyone behind you. You just need to worry about what you can see, and they'll worry about what they can see.
And you were a little apprehensive on getting on a scooter during our initial phase of Bali, but my understanding is you overcame that challenge. So tell us a little bit about that.
I am now a scooter aficionado. I took as many Grab scooter rides as I could.
Explain what a Grab scooter ride is, because a lot of people are probably
okay.
With
So
that.
Yes, of course. What a bizarre thing. Okay, so so here in the United States, we primarily all drive cars, right? So for me growing up, I was told that riding a motorcycle was dangerous. They were donor cycles. You shouldn't ever want to ride those. And it's because here in the United States, people who are used to driving in cars don't pay as much attention to motorcycles. So it is more dangerous to be on a two-wheel vehicle. But over there, the primary mode of transportation is scooter. Everyone's riding them. So I think once I got a sense that that was the norm in this new culture, I wanted to try it out. And so over there, instead of Lyft and Uber, they have Grab and Gojek. So you just pull up your app, you call an Uber or Lyft, and a strange man in a scooter drives up and says, hop on. So yeah, it was really fun. Plus, it's more fun than walking. So yeah, if you have a 20-minute walk somewhere or a 2-minute $1 Grab ride, I always pick that.
So are you now a scooter driver here in the United States, or are you back to driving cars?
I'm back to driving cars, but in anticipation of the upcoming trip and wanting to sort of keep the spirit of Southeast Asia Samantha alive, I did get my motorcycle license back here in the United States. What you do is you show up on Saturday at noon, having never ever driven a motorcycle, not a scooter, a manual motorcycle, and then on Sunday at 3, you take your skills test.
I did want to talk a little bit about packing because I am I'm going back to Bali. I'll be there for 3 months, and then I'm going down to Australia and New Zealand for not 3 months, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in Bali, and then another month down in Australia and New Zealand. And I was very impressed with the bag that you had on the stage during your presentation. And it was a 40-liter, right? Osprey,
yes, that's
which
correct.
I actually got a 46-liter, so I have a little bit extra room.
No, that's perfect.
And I have a 20-liter day pack, Osprey day pack as well. And this is not a sponsorship for Osprey in any way, but that is a great pack. But you also alluded to the fact that you didn't actually start that way. So tell me a little bit about your initial bags and how you purged and how you got down to such a small bag, because I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And in fact, I'm meeting another group of people in Australia and have so far asked them, can you bring a bag for me? And maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I can try to really pare down. So I'm a little curious about that. And also you, Keith, too, as a nomad, I'm sure you're doing the same thing. So I'm curious to hear about how you basically bring everything down to that small size.
Yeah, so I started with the 2 bags you saw on stage, a 40-liter main luggage and a 20-liter Osprey day pack. Hello, Osprey. And I also had a 30-liter collapsible Osprey bag, a little duffel. And I thought, I'm going for 3 months. I'm going to go through stuff. I'm going to go through shampoo, contacts, supplements, prescriptions. I will just put extra stuff in this duffel, and then as I go, I'll use things up, and that bag will disappear, and I'll be down to 2. Turns out that's not reality. You don't really reduce that much. So my very lovely strategy was every time a friend was leaving to go back to the States, I would shove as many things as I could in their bag. And so at 3 different points in my 3 months, I sent things home with people.
And Keith, how do you travel light?
So I also have an Osprey 40-liter and a 15-liter pack for my laptop and all the electronics and everything. And yeah, I've lived for the last just under a year and a half out of those 2 bags. So back in February, I did a ski trip with some friends, went out to Colorado, up in the mountains. So I stopped at one of my houses and picked up all of my snow gear. So I didn't have the same gear that I was in Southeast Asia when I was up in Colorado. But for the most part, like when I picked up the snow gear, I dropped off all the warm weather gear. And so far in the last year and a half, I've pretty much just been in warm weather. So you have to get really efficient with your clothing. You have to looking, okay, I don't need 10 hoodies. I have to get by with 1 hoodie. And the great thing about traveling and going to see different friends on a constant basis is that the friends that I'm visiting this week have no idea what I was wearing in front of my friends last week. So you can keep wearing the same clothes over and over again, and nobody thinks that you're just, you're a bum. You've only got 5 shirts. Well, you didn't see me that long, so you don't know that.
Was there anything that you find is essential to have in that pack, and anything that you kind of said, I originally packed this, but it was non-essential and it's gone? So can you give us an idea of what the really important things are and what is unimportant that maybe you thought was important initially?
Well, it's a very common saying in hiking and in travel that you pack your fears. And I definitely packed my fears on my way over to Bali. When I left to go over there, my 40-liter was bursting at the seams. It was so full. And the 15-liter was also bursting at the seams. And I thought, all right, great, I've got my bags full. And I get over there, and Amy gave us a sarong and a T-shirt, and I didn't have anywhere to put them because my bags were so full. And similar to Samantha, I kept sending stuff home with people, and I ended up buying a suitcase when I was in Thailand just to get back to America because there were so many things that I was like, well, I brought this with me and have never used it. One example of things that I thought I was going to need is like, I'm going to do a lot of hiking, so I need to have one of those water bladders and hoses. And it turns out that a water bottle also holds water. And so, and you can get those at any convenience store. I would say the things that have been essential for me is obviously the clothes that I wore on a regular basis. I have a pair of sandals that I bought when we were over in Bali. And I think Samantha was with us when we were doing that trip. I was like, I need to find this very specific type of sandal. And I looked all over Bali, and I found the one specific type of sandal that actually happened to be made there in Bali. And they're the most comfortable shoes. So I've got those in my gym shoes. But I got rid of, I brought water shoes, I brought flip-flops, and I was like, I don't need these. Other than the clothes and my phone and all my charging cords and everything, I don't think there's really anything else that is essential that I brought with me. And I'm going back to Southeast Asia in a couple of months, and I've already packed, like, okay, what am I going to bring over there? And that bag is so much lighter now than it was when I was going over there the last time. And the full suitcase that I brought back with me from Thailand, I'm not even going to need that. So sort of a learning process. If anybody's thinking about becoming a nomad, I realize that you're going to overpack the first time, and it's just sort of a learning process, and nothing that I can tell you now will convince you that you don't need those 5 extra pairs of socks or that whatever thing that you need as a comfort item. I brought 4 bottles of eye drops because I thought that I was going to need a lot of eye drops when I was over there. Turns out, A, I didn't need that many eye drops, and B, they sell eye drops in other countries. That's not...
So you didn't have a challenge finding anything that you didn't have? Sunscreen, cosmetics, anything like that. So it sounds like those are readily available everywhere you rent. And I presume that's the case with Samantha too.
Yeah, everything that you need, you can buy somewhere else. Even if you can't get it at a local convenience store, they also have internet shopping over there, and you can have things shipped to you from anywhere in the world. It might be a little more challenging. You might have to wait a couple extra days, longer than if you were to be able to find it at a store, but you can get anything. So you don't need to bring everything with you with a just-in-case kind of attitude. Just bring what you know you need and buy whatever else, find out that you need later.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Keith said. I definitely overpacked and packed some fears. Things I brought 4 pairs of shoes, I'm embarrassed to say, and I could have gotten away with just a pair of like Teva equivalents and 1 pair of sneakers. Flip-flops, I just never needed them. 3 bathing suits, 2 is fine. I brought a rash guard that I used once the whole time. And so my biggest recommendation would be merino wool clothing, t-shirts, and I had my favorite thing in my bag is my merino wool pajama set. It's a shorts, and like putting them on at the end of each day was like pure luxury. But the shirts were really great. You can wear them multiple times before you wash them. Also merino wool bras and underwear. So merino wool everything. It's an investment, but yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about, first of all, there's some of us who like souvenirs. So I guess if you're doing this, you kind of just have to let that go, is what that sounds like.
I had very few souvenirs. So I did the full moon party in Thailand, real rager, and I got a t-shirt from that. Anytime I acquired a new like sort of item, like a t-shirt, I got rid of another one. Other souvenirs are like magnets or flat, skinny things that don't take up a lot of room. But yeah, really did let go of the idea of souvenirs.
I can tell you that it was really liberating when I would go into a souvenir shop or some people would walk up to you with stuff. And I'd be like, I don't have anywhere to put it, so no, I can't buy that. So instead of like, I had the like, oh, I should get a souvenir from here. You should get a souvenir from the next place. But because you're going somewhere new every few days or every few weeks, I would have had a garage full of souvenirs. And so it was actually liberating to be like, sorry, I don't have anywhere to put it. I'm homeless, so.
And just one last question. What about prescription medication? If you're going for a long period of time and say your prescription, they won't fill it for 3 months, like how do you do that?
So I have 2 prescriptions. I was only going for 90 days, and you are, with a lot of prescriptions, able to get a 90-day fill if your doctor writes you the script. So for this upcoming trip, you can either slightly change your dosage so that you can fill the 90-day again, if it's like a medicine you can do that with, or you can pay out of pocket. So that is something I'm actually getting ready to figure out right now. Or my doctor said I could have the prescription mailed to an address. So if I can figure out an address, I can have it mailed there. So yeah, that's kind of on my list of things to figure out.
And I did the same thing. I filled a 90-day script for the prescriptions I need to bring over there. And then I got prescriptions. I mean, there's doctors in other countries too. So if it's a maintenance medication where you just need to keep taking, it's something you need to take every day for life or for a long period of time, just go in and see a doctor in there and say, hey, I've got this condition. This is the medicine that I'm taking, and you can get a prescription for whatever you need over there. And a lot of times it's cheaper, or they'll have, we don't use that medicine, but we've got this other thing that does the same. You can go home and do your Google research and go, okay, yeah, that's similar enough to get.
Well, I have to say that your stories are very inspiring. It's definitely allowed me to expand my horizon. Both of you were very instrumental in me deciding to go to Bali last year and back again this year. And Keith, I'll see you there this year, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about your upcoming travels, and I'd love to hear that. Maybe if we're both here or at another event next year, we'll talk about those as well. And do you guys have any contact information, or if people want to reach out, is there a way that they can do that if you so choose to share that?
Sure, yeah, I would love for you to follow me or add me on Instagram. It is at Samantha, Samantha, Pillion, P as in Peter, ILLION.
You can email me if you have any questions, or if you want to cheer me on. My email address is Keith, that's Keith, at knugent.com, KNUGENT.com.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for the live audience. And let's hear it from CampFI Mid-Atlantic. Thank you for listening to this week's show. Please click follow on your favorite podcast player or subscribe on YouTube to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Also, please leave a rating and review for the show. This helps improve the ranking and enables other like-minded people find the content in their podcast players. If you would like me to answer a question on the show, please send it to mark@marksmoneymind.com and put podcast question in the subject line. Let me know your first name, or let me know if you would like to remain anonymous, and also your state of residence if you choose. I would also appreciate it if you would recommend this show to friends and family that might benefit from this content. See you next week on the Mark's Money Mind Show. Until then, make some, save and invest, live on the rest. And now for the all-important disclaimer. This show is for education and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered investment, tax, or legal advice. Please consult the appropriate advisor or advisors before implementing anything you hear on this show or any other show for that matter. While I fully intend for everything on this show to be true and accurate at the time of each recording, occasionally errors may occur. So please do your own due diligence on anything discussed.